These two lenses are perhaps the two most important lenses in all of APS-C history, and that's a little bit dramatic, but they are important, and not simply because they give you effectively 35mm field of view on a full frame that everyone who's pre-ordering that new Fuji X100 VI is fighting over, but because I think that they represent two of the absolute best options if you're looking for a walk-around street photography lens. And so in this video, I want to compare them side by side, and I want to get to the bottom of which one of these two lenses is the better buy. On paper, these two are not exactly equals. The Sigma is a 23mm with a 1.5 crop that gives you 35mm on a full frame, whereas the Viltrox is a 27, which is equivalent to 40mm, so a little bit closer. The Sigma comes from a lineup that is trusted, it's respected, and one that I've always been a fan of. That makes it a quartet amongst other superstar lenses such as the 16mm and the 56mm. The Viltrox 27mm on the other hand is a bit like a rookie, but an astonishingly good one. It has just one other sibling in the pro model lineup, the absolutely amazing 75mm F1.2, and Viltrox is just getting started, so I won't be surprised if we get a wider pro lens soon. Now, there are a lot of ways to go about this comparison. You can talk about specs, you could talk about build quality, size, weight, internal construction, all of that fun stuff, but I want to keep this video a little bit simpler. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys some side-by-side photos taken with my A6700 on a tripod at the exact same time, and I'm going to discuss some of the differences that I see, and you may agree or disagree with some of my comments, but this is really for you to see how these two lenses perform in a real-life scenario, and you can make the choice for yourself as to which one is better, but I'll have some thoughts to wrap up at the very end as well. I'm gonna start by showing you guys some portraits of my wife here. Both of these lenses on a tripod. In some cases, I move the tripod forward to compensate on the 23mm Sigma. I'll keep the Sigma on the left, the Viltrox on the right. So here's the first shot. These are both wide open, so you can see the difference between f1.4 and f1.2 on the Viltrox. And in terms of sharpness, there's really not much to discuss here. I think both lenses, at least in the center of the frame, they are brilliantly sharp. As you can tell with the focal length 27 versus 23 and with f1.2 versus f1.4, the background is smoother, a lot smoother with that Viltrox versus the Sigma, and perhaps it's easier to see when you guys look at them one by one. So here's the Sigma, here's the Viltrox, Sigma and Viltrox. Viltrox is showing a little bit of vignetting here, which is interesting, but we'll see if that repeats itself in subsequent images. So the next shot here is also done wide open on both lenses. And again, you could see the framing difference is a little bit different. 23 is more like a real 35. In terms of sharpness though, oh man, it almost looks like the Sigma missed focus. Viltrox looks nice and sharp. Sigma's decent, but Viltrox is a little bit better. And looking at the backgrounds, let's see, some fringing here, a little bit of green and blue, less so because it's blurry with the Viltrox. Again, we see the same thing, just a smoother background with that Viltrox. Let's move on to the next one. Here is another one, this time both lenses at f1.4, so we're stopping that Viltrox down. And you can see the framing is the same because I moved the Viltrox forward or back, I think, to compensate. But let's take a look at this. So up close, colors might be a little bit warmer on the Viltrox. Sharpness looks identical to me. I don't see a winner between these two. If you look at this intricate kind of detailed design in Janessa's shirt that she's wearing, there's some fringing here with that Sigma that is definitely noticeable on the edges. It's not as noticeable. There might be a little bit of that blue, but this is definitely a distinct purple outline with this design. And then take a look at the backgrounds because this is interesting to me. Again, this is compensated so you're either shooting closer or further depending on the focal length. But looking at the actual bokeh, the Viltrox is just nice and smooth. There's no bokeh balls. There's nothing, no outlining, nothing distracting here. Versus you get a little bit of outlining, a little bit of fringing, just slightly worse in my opinion bokeh with that Sigma. And you can actually see, even look at her necklace here, fringing with that Sigma less so. I mean, it doesn't look like purple fringing here with the Viltrox. Here's another one. So this time both wide open. Looking at sharpness here, there is really not much. I mean, the Viltrox looks better, maybe because the eyes are just a little bit more pronounced. But the key difference that I wanted to look at here is the background bokeh. So again, look at the background bokeh balls here. The Sigma bokeh is still good, but in comparison, you get larger bokeh balls, less of that fringing, outlining look. It's just a smoother overall look. And when you're looking at these photos side by side, here's the Sigma, here's the Viltrox, it just adds, obviously there's a crop here, but it adds so much more having that smoother background separation. Okay, the last portrait here, both lenses at f1.4. And again, sharpness, I don't think we're gonna see any difference, nothing. But take a look at that fringing again. So let's take a look at this building. Both of these are at f1.4, and I wanted to take a look at chromatic aberration. And again, unfortunately with that Sigma, it's a recurring theme. The Viltrox impressively has very little chromatic aberration, and there's kind of this tint of, I don't know, it looks like a little blue magenta with the Sigma, whereas the Viltrox in this case just looks more natural. I mean, everything looks in focus here. Here's another example. Here's a side of a brick building, and you can see from a detail standpoint, sharpness standpoint, there's really not much of a difference between the two. The tones of these yellows are slightly different. Maybe a little even punchier with the Sigma, but taking a look at this, again, we see the same thing, just purple fringing, a lot of this stuff that's just really hard to edit in post if you're trying to get rid of it. Here's a shot of a building, kind of a garage area. And one thing that I noticed with the Viltrox, both these are wide open by the way, but you'll notice with the Sigma, it's nice and flat. There's no barrel distortion. I'm gonna flip over to the Viltrox. There's the Viltrox, and you can easily see the barrel distortion. Those lines are nice and curved. You also notice that the tone, this is kind of a cooler color versus the warmer tones of this one. And then I did another shot here where I just moved the camera closer with the Sigma 23. And again, you could see the Sigma lines are nice and straight, but the colors, there's just something about the colors. And I mean, the sharpness, it looks like it's sharp here, but then you look at the corners, it's not nearly as sharp as what you get with the Viltrox, which is a little bit surprising. I mean, look all around. I'm looking at the edges and the corners, and the Viltrox at f1.2 seems sharper to me. One area in which the Sigma is better is in close-up focusing. You can see you can get a little bit closer to your subject with that lens. You look at the colors, and the Viltrox looks a little bit punchier. You look at the bokeh, it's smoother here. So there are pluses and minuses to both, but from a purely minimum focus standpoint, the Sigma is the better lens out of the two just by a little bit. Now this shot was interesting just because I wanted to see that barrel distortion again, and you'll see there's some vignetting with the Viltrox. So here's the Sigma, here's the Viltrox, Sigma Viltrox. Definitely some darker corners with that Viltrox, but it looks like the Sigma for some reason misfocused. It just looks like the Viltrox is much sharper, and you look into the corners and it's a crazy difference. But anyway, from a barrel distortion perspective, the Sigma is the better lens. When it comes to flaring, both of these lenses do a great job in controlling flares, and you can see there's not much here in terms of purple or crazy flares. But while we're here, take a look at the fringing. Again, you get green, you get purple. There's still some of it with this Viltrox, but it's just less. There's more color fringing here than there is here with the same subject. So something to note, and this is again f1.2 versus f1.4. In theory, the Sigma should be better in this regard, but it isn't. All right, so undoubtedly these results may sway people in either direction. If I had to pick just one lens, there's something special about this lens, and it's surprising for me to pick a lens that I would consider kind of a newbie to the lineup, but has better build, has an aperture ring, has the autofocus manual focus switch, has a click on off button, has a button here. I mean, there's a lot of great things about this lens, and the performance I think is just a level above. And these are about the same price. They're around $550 US at the time of recording this video. which isn't exactly cheap in the world of APS-C, so you're spending a significant chunk of change either way you go. The Viltrox is bigger and heavier, but I'd consider both of these lenses to be medium compact. They certainly aren't as easy as a pancake lens to walk around with. So whichever one you end up picking, you likely won't be stuffing it into any sort of normal sized pocket. In terms of autofocus performance, I didn't see any significant differences between these two. I don't really throw out very many shots with either one of them. They are accurate, they're quiet, and I'd say neither one excels over the other in this area. So that is my comparison between these two lenses. Hopefully that was helpful and you guys found at least some answers as to how these two things compare. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments section. Which one of these two lenses would you personally pick? As always, if you are interested in reading more about them, checking out specs and pricing, I'll have links to each one of these lenses down in the description. So definitely check out those links. As always, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.